Hello friends, and welcome to Chinese Mini Excavator. Quick review and demonstration. If you find my content, please consider a like and subscribe. I appreciate it very much. Chinese Mini Excavators. What a fascinating value in getting excavating construction done on the cheap. I bought this just a few months ago. It's a 2024 Mach Pro, although there seem to be the same frame and a lot of different models. They're all pretty similar. They all pretty much come with a 420cc single-cylinder engine, and everything is hydraulic on this. It's got, I think, a 15-gallon per minute hydraulic pump, a pretty good-sized little hydraulic tank in there, and you've got tracks driven by hydraulic motors. You've got a standard excavator controls. These are actually European controls, where it's sort of different than what an American excavator is, but you get used to it pretty quick. You've got 2-foot controls. One's for the auxiliary hydraulics, which you can add a separate ram up here for a like a claw to grab stuff, and then the other one handles the plow on the front. The plow is actually quite important to how this thing works. So they've come down in price, so pretty reasonable. I had a retaining wall to build, and ideally a garage, but I didn't get to the garage, unfortunately, and this baby's got to go. So what kind of quality to get with this? Some stuff on this is quality, and some stuff is not awesome. So like the way the hydraulic lines are routed, the motor inside, and the tracks and stuff are all pretty good. The welds are all good. This machine came with everything was actually greased. They've got these sort of inverted grease nipples, but it came with a grease gun that it feeds them. All the stuff that matters is pretty good. Some of the body fitment stuff is not awesome. It was sort of slapped together in a hurry, probably because it's just a generic frame. The Chinese are pretty good at making single-cylinder engines. The Chinese can make any quality you want. People complain about Chinese quality a lot just because, but it's cheap. They say, well, it was no good, but it was super cheap. So a similar Kubota is like $20,000 for one of these. Probably quite a bit smoother. How does this thing operate? Well, I have it on the lowest possible speed. It came misadjusted. I have it basically running at idle. And at idle, you can run this bucket no problem. This thing is immensely powerful. Hydraulic cylinders have a lot of power. The thing that holds this thing back from anything is the weight. It's rated at 2,300 pounds, and really it's the weight of this thing that sort of bucks it. There are no restrictors on these hydraulics. So basically hydraulics on lots of stuff, they'll have a restrictor that dumbs it down to restrict the flow so you can make it smoother. This thing has no restrictor, so you have to operate these valves smoothly, little bits. You get used to it quickly. You actually need some power. Sometimes I turn it up to like quarter throttle to move the treads and put the plow down. When you put the plow down, you can actually plow stuff pretty good. You also put the plow down to provide stability when you're using the bucket. I don't know what brand the single cylinder is, but it's rated at 13.5 horsepower. Probably quite a bit more torque than that. But you need horsepower to accelerate a hydraulic pump up to its operating speed, and then torque to hold it there. But it's probably pretty understressed. It'll probably last a long time. They're good at making these. They have big factories that are modern that make a ton of single-cylinder engines for scooters and motorcycles, so there's no problem. Everything else in this seems pretty good. There's actually a hydraulic oil filter on this one, which wasn't on some of the previous ones. I added this cooling fan. It pulls quite a bit of CFM into the open air-cooled engine bay. I think it's important. It's got a 30-amp switch here, which runs it. It's got an auxiliary light on the front, so you can do some night excavating. It's a little bit choppy on the treads, but the power is there. You can move anything. It's got tons of power, this thing. It works pretty well. For the price, I think it's pretty good. I like this little sunshade, and it doubles as some rollover protection, and it's nice to grab onto this thing when you jump in. It's got a little choke on here. I barely need to do anything. It's got a pretty good size fuel tank. It's got this little drop-in fuel gauge thing and a voltage gauge, and it's got a full-size car battery in this thing, which is awesome. I don't know why you would need a battery that big, but it's got it. There's our gear pump. Anyways, this thing has like 3 hours on it. That's all I used it. But it was cheaper than a rental, so let's fire it up. Have a look at how it works. Power on. Up to go. Minimum throttle. Well, minimum is absolutely plenty. Pretty straightforward. That one's our left bucket. This one's our right bucket. See, little bucky. But what we want to do is put our plow down. Once the plow's down, it's a little happier that way. See? It doesn't buck you if you take it easy. Watch all the CFMs that baby pulls. So many CFMs. Anyways, these things are great value. For digging, great. You can get tons of different buckets for it. There's a much, much larger bucket you can use for lifting earth and moving earth quickly with it. I started to get pretty quick with this thing after a couple hours. And man, it pulled downhill. Like, it dug in pretty good with that tooth bucket. There's a lot you could do. And I lifted a Dodge Ram Hemi with that, chained it up, lifted it. It lifts it no problem. It's the weight. If you put the plow down, I lifted it and put it into a trailer, but it just could use a bit more weight on the rear. Other than that, this thing, these are killer values. So hopefully you find this useful, and you know, lots of people hate Chinese stuff, but for the value of these things, it can't be beat. I'll see you in the next one.